Happy Wednesday. Hopefully, everyone's having an awesome week so far. Every so often, I go not really searching for crap, but I see crap, especially on Twitter. Now, I'm going to show you what Salon is currently saying. Ronald Reagan's moment of massive historical irony how armed black men led to gun control. I think it's almost. I think I. It's almost the fact that gun 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 control came from racism because the Black Panther came to the capital of California when Reagan was governor. I don't know if it was in the debate on it or whatnot, but the fact that there's some racism linked into it, and Sloan is putting a link to it. Of course, we have updated the headline and deleted the original text of the original tweet for this story. I think you should pretty much go ahead and delete your website because it's full of hate. And of course, we got people posting this. When Ronald Reagan's racism saved lives, armed black men met immediately gun control. And it's just pretty much all this. Shut the F up. Liberal, pretty much. Everybody's reposting it. Gun sales rise among black people as they look for firearm training. Edition CNN. Ooh. I excuse racism, but I draw the line at gun violence. You can excuse racism. Absolutely. But of course, here's the Salon Ronald Reagan moment of massive historical irony how armed black men led to gun control. Then, of course, someone was able to archive it before it was too late. Forget who it was. I deeply thank you on that one. When Ronald Reagan's racism saved lives, armed black men meant immediately gun control. When armed Black Panthers showed up at California State Capitol in 1967, they were probably saved thousands of lives. And unfortunately, in the 1960s, we weren't our best selves. We weren't today's America. I'm glad that we're no longer in 1960 America because we have achieved greatness. We have achieved overcoming certain racisms or certain stereotypes and certain behaviors. We've overcome that, and I am happy for that. To ignore where we come from and just label everything terrible is not a really good way to look at it. Unfortunately, Salome does not think that. They just want to make everything terrible and racist. Let's go ahead and read this crappy ass story. Try not to curse, but when we're talking about Salome, it belongs in the toilet. And where does shit comes from? It comes from the ass. On May 2nd, 1967, destinies of Hugh Newton, Bobby Seale, and Ronald Reagan collided. The day saved told thousands of lives. It's debatable. At the time, California was an open carry state with few gun restrictions. Governor Reagan was on the steps of the Capitol to meet with a shared lunch with a group visiting eighth graders when Newton, Seale, and nearly 30 other Black Panthers pulled up from a small caravan of cars. Armed with everything from pistols to 12-gauge shotguns, they climbed the half dozen steps to the area around the front door of the building. Seale pulled out a prepared statement and read it to the students and the people in front of the Capitol. Black people have begged, prayed, petitioned, demonstrated, and everything else to get the racist power structure of America to right the wrongs which have historically been perpetrated against black people. At the time has come black people to arm themselves against this terror before it's too late. Then walked into the building to confront the state police and legislature, fully loaded, guns and rifles in their hands. Reagan was aghast, and nearly all white California legislature panicked. There's no reason why on the street today a citizen should be carrying a loaded weapon, Reagan said later that afternoon. Within weeks, Republican Assemblyman Don Mulford, with bipartisan support, introduced into California Assembly Law AB 1591 to ban people in California from carrying loaded weapons in public. It was enthusiastically signed into law by Reagan on July 28, fewer than 3 months after seal procurement on the Capitol. Over the years, California has built on the initial gun control law after 1989 shooting of Stockton with a young white man, wielding a semi-automatic weapon, murdered 5 children and a teacher while injuring over 30 others. California passed a ban on assault weapons and stands to this day. The state went on to ban private gun sales, closing the notorious gun show loophole that pours weapons into other states. California requires all gun dealers to be registered and licensed by the state, mandate background checks, and even outlaw manufacturing and sale of cheap Saturday night special handguns in the state. I completely almost forgot about that. When California puts its own version of red flags into laws that forbids people flagged at risk of committing gun crimes or mass murders from purchasing guns, the state followed up with one of the few in the country with agency that studies gun violence and found them to be nearly 100% effective because how difficult the state makes it to obtain a weapon. Nothing's 100% effective. And this is where they're going to do a dig onto Texas. The hate for Texas is overwhelming. We get it. We have a Republican governor. You have a Democratic governor. It's the left versus right, blue versus red. You just gotta dig into it because, why not? Politics. While in Texas, a violent criminal on the federal no-fly list watch is welcome to buy a dozen assault weapons from the back of a car and go shoot up a school. In California, you can't buy a gun if you're convicted of any violent crime whatsoever, even a misdemeanor like a bite or a bar fight. Most people cannot, most people, especially in California, Chicago, New York, Montana, Texas, Florida, Arkansas, can buy a gun from the back of a car. We call that the black market. And by these gun bans, you're only making that market more valuable actually, and valuable option for most people. Most people will get their guns from the back of a car, whether it's an assault weapon, I'm doing air quotes from assault weapons, or it's a pistol. You would stop nothing. You're just going to make maybe additional costs. So you really haven't stopped that. A violent criminal in California on the federal no-fly list is welcome to buy a dozen assault weapons from the back of a car and shoot up a school in California. It's true. I mean, that's a true statement. Hopefully it doesn't happen. But this is nonsense. As a result, according to New York correspondent Sean Huber, by 2019, last year, which has statistics, California gun deaths were around 7 per 100,000 people, one of the lowest rates in the country. So there's a huge differential between 2019, Huber wrote, Sabrina Tevers on the Times posted podcast. I mean, I can't read. Podcast data: the chances of dying from gun violence in California were about 70% lower than they were in the rest of the country, but yet you're going to be walking through crap on your sidewalk because you have a out of control homeless issue. California still has more gun deaths than any state in the nation except Texas, as the NRA quickly points out, but they won't highlight California with the 40 million people, about the same as Florida, New York combined, has the largest population by any state and is bigger than 198 of its world's nations, 300, not 300, but 235 nations. California still has more gun deaths by any states, even including Texas, when you total them all up. Now, when you want to do it by 1,000, yes, I think Texas might have something there. But California rate of 7 gun deaths per 100,000 states is virtually no gun control like Mississippi, which is 28, Louisiana 26, Wyoming 25, Missouri, which is 23, Alabama, which is 23. Effectively, those prohibitions prohibitions becomes obvious if you live in Texas, floating around the nation, average around 14 gun deaths per 100,000. Hawaii is 3.4, Massachusetts is 3.7, New Jersey is 5, Rhode Island is 5.1, New York is 5.3, or Connecticut, which is 6. And also, I'm pretty sure a lot of this also doesn't remove suicide by gun death, which will also decrease as well. But facts. When your gun nut brother in law starts blabbing about gun deaths in Chicago, Illinois, with reasonable gun control, which is about 14.1 gun deaths per 100,000 people, you may want to point out nearly 60% of the guns seized from Chicago came from out of state, with most coming from next door Indiana, which is 17.3 guns per 100,000, where gun stores dot the line on India's side of the state line. I have issues with this because places like Chicago has a culture issue when it comes to violence in general. It's rampant with gangs on the south side, so I've been told. Until you could actually change the culture of the people living there, you're going to have these issues. Yes, there are probably straw purchases which should be charged because you're not supposed to have straw purchases. And a straw purchase is I have a friend that buys me a gun and there is no title transfer or anything. Let's say I'm on a no buy gun list and I have a friend buy it for me. That's a straw purchase. Now I could use that gun and it's only tied to my friend, which is also an issue that we need to look into. But there's also a deeper issue of the culture here. There's a deep culture within Chicago and some of the places like New York and California, Houston, Dallas, and unfortunately, Austin, Texas, where we're seeing more murders. And this has to do with the culture. What these mayors failed to do their job as is to change the culture, become more united, give the hood more attention by asking big name companies to move there and create opportunities for these people. Maybe have a program for non-violent first offenders to turn their lives around, but instead, let's just blame everyone else because the guns are coming from outside of the state. There's nothing else we could do. We already banned all these guns. They're still coming. People are still shooting each other. So let's blame other states. We need a federal national gun control. Is what they're saying. They're saying we have failed as leaders to change the minds and hearts of our people. At least that's how I look at it. Then, of course, in 1932, new state ICE Lehman decision, the Supreme Court Justice Louis Brandeis famously called the states laboratories of democracy. In one of his happy incidents, the federal system that singly courageous, the state may, if a citizen chooses to serve as a laboratory and try a novel social economical experiment without the risk of the rest of the country. He could have been speaking of California, Hawaii, Connecticut. Gun control works, and we have the proof right here in the United States, but you don't. Ironically, you don't. Because if gun control worked, you wouldn't have the high murder rates in New York or in Chicago. Well, they may not be the highest, but they are still pretty high. You still have gun deaths in California. Well, Reagan's racism produced the first significant gun control in America's largest state. Today, white supremacy is the largest force fighting against gun control. I see plenty of black people posting their gun pics. Responsible gun owners, I should say. I see a lot of Hispanics that's very responsible, big into the community. Labeling everything in white supremacy because it scares you. Because it's a emotional plug. Does no service to you. With a few exceptions, the entire Second Amendment movement is made up of white people. I mean, we are the majority of the people. Almost. I think that's slowly coming because the replacement, the great replacement, we're being replaced because white people aren't producing enough white people, and other ethnic groups, as in Hispanics, is taking up the slack. With a few exceptions of the entire is made up of white people, many of them associated with white nationalists, militias, and politicians from the former Confederate States. You know, I'm a gun owner. I'm white. Don't belong to a militia. While I do believe in some nationalistic pride within my country, because I think we should make America great, or greater than it has ever been. I mean, you cannot make America great without making Americans great. Notice I'm not saying one group or the other. I'm saying all of America. Americans together can be great. The NRA greatly diminished both in power and budget, but racism continues to drive the gun control debate. It's time that the opposite direction from the days Reagan was the governor of California. Today we see knee jerk of non-white people from ongoing explosions of gun purchases in rural suburban area, white communities across the country. When America elected the first black president in 2008, gun stores across America were overwhelmed by white people buying guns. That was referred to as a frenzy and the great gun and ammunition shortage. Well, you know what? A lot of people during Trump, when the Summer of Love peaceful protests, which were really riots that destroyed cities, small towns that you won't report on because it doesn't fit your narrative, saw where having a gun was beneficial. Every time there was a Democrat, I think under Clinton, there was a surge of gun ownership. Under Obama, there was a surge of gun ownership. Under Biden, especially now, there's a surge of gun ownership. It seems like every time there's a Democrat in office, they become the gun lobbyist spokesperson because there's always threat of them seizing the guns, which creates a panic buy on guns and ammunition. Scratch the surface of the most fervent gun right members of Congress, and you'll find unrepentant white supremacist Republican politicians reflexively villainize the Black Lives Matter movement and the hype of Antifa straw men at every opportunity. It wasn't the white people. It wasn't the responsible gun owners that were going down the cities and burning them up block by block. It wasn't responsible Americans looting stores. It was Black Lives Matter, or people claiming to be Black Lives Matter. It was people, Antifa, that were in Portland bombing a courthouse, a federal courthouse. So no, it wasn't a straw man at every opportunity. Their actions speak for themselves. But of course, that doesn't fit your narrative. On the gun control side, now that the Panthers are mostly just a memory on the national stage, the fear of armed black people have been replaced by fear of white children being slaughtered in public schools. I mean, there is a fear of children being slaughtered in public schools because the publications just wouldn't shut up about it and keep on doing it and doing it and doing it. That's providing us with a shocking glimpse in the minds of these Republicans, largely white, freak out about black people having weapons back in the 1960s was a strong motivator from them today. Today's slaughter of innocent children of all races, at least so far. Now, I think everybody should legally be gun owners if they are responsible and don't have a criminal record. They should exercise their rights to the Second Amendment. Nothing's stopping them. We're a different country now, and we're better off for it. Now, I do understand that gun control works. Just ask 1930 Germany how well gun control works. What about Stalin? What about Mao in China, North Korea? So, yes, we know gun control works. Also gives an opportunity for the government to overstep their bounds and take away more rights. Anyways, this has gone long enough. Probably won't be reading another story from Salon because they're just pure garbage. Anyways, leave a comment down below what your thoughts are. Other than don't do stories from Salon because I 100% agree. But anyways, leave a comment down below. Smash the like and subscribe button on any and all platforms. Or just the platform you're currently watching. But most importantly, have yourself a wonderful day, morning, or evening.